Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we sift through a mountain of information to unearth the most vital breakthroughs and insights for you. Today, we're embarking on an ambitious journey. We're going to the Red Planet, but maybe not in the way you're expecting.
That's right.
We're delving into a really fascinating proposal. The idea that humanity's first major Martian missions might not involve humans at all. Instead, they could be led, or even entirely carried out, by one-way robotic missions.
Yeah, and this isn't just, some sci-fi thought experiment. It's a serious strategic question. It challenges our fundamental assumptions about always putting humans first in space exploration.
Okay.
And the proposal, it really stands on two incredibly solid pillars.
Which are?
Well, first, the immense difficulty, almost prohibitive difficulty of getting humans back from Mars, the return journey.
Right, the physics involved.
Exactly. And second, the colossal potential of advanced AI and robotics to just completely revolutionize exploration.
And when you say immense difficulty, we're talking about the fundamental physics, right? That tyranny of the rocket equation isn't just a catchy phrase.
No, it's brutal. Getting humans to Mars is hard enough. But getting them back, that means carrying all the fuel and the Mars Ascent Vehicle, the MAV, needed to launch off Mars.
Which adds massive weight, that mass-on-mass problem.
Precisely. Think of it like a cosmic gear ratio. It's incredibly high. For every kilogram you want to land on Mars and bring back, you need somewhere around 8 to 10 kilograms of mass just sitting in low Earth orbit to start with.
Wow, 8 to 10 times.
Yeah, so every single gram you don't have to bring back from Mars saves you 8 to 10 grams launching from Earth.
Yeah.
Cutting out that MAV, cutting out the human life support for the return trip. It simplifies everything enormously and slashes the cost.
Okay. So our mission today is to give you multidimensional analysis of this pretty radical idea. Fully autonomous robots pioneering Mars. We'll explore the cutting-edge AI, the brains they'd need, the robotic hardware required, and even the strategic and philosophical questions this whole deep dive raises.
It definitely goes there.
So get ready to be well-informed, maybe find some surprising facts, and definitely get some food for thought. Let's get started.
So let's begin by thinking about the brains of these future Mars pioneers. When we talk about the kind of artificial intelligence needed for a one-way mission, our sources dive deep into something called model-free reinforcement learning, or MFRL. What exactly is that, and why is it potentially so important for somewhere like Mars?
Right. Well, MFRL is basically an AI approach where the agent learns directly from interacting with its environment. It doesn't need a pre-built, perfect model of Mars beforehand.
So it learns by doing, trial and error.
Kind of, yeah. But sophisticated trial and error. It takes an action, sees what happens, gets a reward or a penalty, and adjusts. And this is incredibly suitable for complex, uncertain, unpredictable places like Mars. Trying to program every single possibility or build a perfect simulation, it's just impossible. Okay. And what are some of the key techniques, the algorithms that make this learning by doing actually work for a robot?
Within MFRL, you've got a few main categories. There are value-based methods. These focus on estimating how good it is to be in a certain state or take a particular action. Things like Q-learning or deep Q networks, DQN. DQN's powerful because it uses neural networks, so it can handle complex inputs like camera images.
Like seeing the terrain.
Exactly. Then you have policy-based methods. These directly learn the best actions to take in a given situation. Policy gradient is an example. And finally, you've got actor-critic methods. These kind of combine the strengths of both. An actor chooses the actions, and a critic evaluates how good those actions were. And these techniques, they've shown real success here on Earth in things like robotic manipulation, walking robots, autonomous driving, all crucial skills for a Mars robot.
Okay, that sounds incredibly powerful.
Okay.
But the idea of a truly perfect AI, especially for a mission this critical, it feels like there must be limitations, fundamental hurdles.
Oh, absolutely. MFRL, for all its strengths, isn't perfect. And for a mission like this, we have to consider the significant limitations.
Such as?
Well, first, there's sample inefficiency. These algorithms are notoriously data hungry. They often need millions, literally millions of interactions to learn effectively.
Millions on Mars.
Yeah. And for a real Mars robot, every interaction takes time, costs power, and carries risk. Could damage the robot. It just can't afford thousands of trial and error attempts to learn basic things.
Okay, that's a big one. What else?
Reward design. Crafting a perfect reward function for complex science tasks on Mars. Find this rock feature, manage your power, avoid that hazard, preserve this sample. It's incredibly difficult. And if you get the reward wrong, You can get reward hacking.
Hmm.
The robot finds a loophole to maximize its score, but doesn't actually achieve the real mission goals.
Ah, gaming the system.
Exactly. Then there's the classic exploration-exploitation trade-off. The AI has to balance trying new things, exploring, with sticking to what it knows works, exploiting.
And on Mars.
On Mars, too much risky exploration or exploring unsafely could literally end the mission. High stakes.
Right.
And finally, generalization and adaptation. An AI trained perfectly in a simulation, or even one part of Mars, might just fail completely when it encounters something truly new or unexpected, which is guaranteed on Mars.
So if this perfect AI isn't really the goal, or maybe isn't even achievable, what becomes the main engineering focus then? It sounds like safety becomes paramount.
That's exactly right, you hit it. These limitations show us the real challenge isn't chasing some flawless learning algorithm. It's building a system that can operate safely despite these inherent flaws. It shifts the focus from perfect performance to rigorous risk management.
Okay.
And that's where this concept of safeguard AI comes in. It's all about safe reinforcement learning, SAFE-RL. The goal is still to maximize rewards, do good science, but while strictly adhering to crucial safety constraints, often modeled using something called a constrained Markov decision process, or CMDP.
And how do we define safety in this context for a robot millions of miles away?
Good question. Our sources outline a few key ways. You can talk about expected cumulative constraints. That's like limiting the average energy use or risk over the long haul. But more critical for robotics are instantaneous or state-wise constraints, guaranteeing safety at every single step, like ensuring the robot never tilts beyond a safe angle or its battery never drops below a critical emergency level, things that prevent immediate failure.
Makes sense.
And then there are chance constraints. These aim to guarantee that the overall probability of a catastrophic failure across the entire mission duration stays extremely low.
It sounds like research is moving pretty fast here, developing sophisticated ways to actually implement this safety.
It really is. Techniques like model predictive shielding, MPS in its dynamic version, DMPS, are very practical. They basically use a shield, kind of backup safety policy that watches what the main AI wants to do.
Yeah.
If the main AI proposes something unsafe,
The shield steps in.
the shield intervenes, yeah. It forces a safe action instead. It ensures the robot stays within safe operating limits, like a very cautious co-pilot who can grab the controls.
Interesting.
Then there's adaptive regularization, RLAR. This runs a model-free AI alongside a more traditional model-based safety controller, and it intelligently blends their outputs, helps solve that exploration problem safely. And other foundational algorithms like constrained policy optimization, CPO, build the safety constraints directly into the AI's learning process itself.
No, wait a second. You said even these model-free safety systems like DMPS and RLAR, they rely on some kind of prediction, some model-based component to see danger coming.
You picked up on a critical point there, yes.
Hey.
What's fascinating is that even systems designed to work with model-free learners often rely on internal, sometimes simple, model-based components to predict future states, to identify potentially unsafe situations before the robot acts.
So does that mean a purely model-free learn-by-doing approach isn't enough on its own for this kind of mission?
That seems to be the critical conclusion, yes. A purely model-free architecture might just be too risky, too unpredictable. The most robust approach, the one that seems most likely for a real Mars pioneer, is probably a hybrid architecture. It would leverage the fantastic learning and adaptability of model-free agents, but have them governed by a strong, model-based safety layer that provides formal guarantees and that crucial foresight.
So the initial vision adapts to reality.
Precisely. It refines that idea of just sending a pure learning black box.
And speaking of black boxes, for a mission this expensive, this important, a one-way trip, we can't just blindly trust an AI, can we? We need to understand why it's making decisions. That brings us to explainable AI, or XAI.
Absolutely vital. XAI, systems that can explain their reasoning in a way humans understand, isn't a nice-to-have feature here. It's a fundamental requirement.
Why specifically?
Well, several reasons. First, trust and accountability. Mission controllers back on Earth need to trust the system, especially if it does something unexpected. If something goes wrong, we have to understand why the AI made that choice, for accountability, for learning.
Makes sense.
Second, debugging and verification. If the rover gets stuck or fails at a task because it encountered something totally new, XAI is crucial for diagnosing the problem. You can't fix what you can't understand.
Right.
And third, human-machine teaming. NASA's own research points toward future missions involving humans and AIs working together. That kind of collaboration absolutely demands transparency, shared understanding.
So we're talking about getting explanations in, say, plain English, or maybe visual cues like heat maps showing what the AI is focusing on in an image.
Exactly, those kinds of things. Now, there is often a trade-off. Sometimes the most powerful AI models are the hardest to interpret, the most like black boxes.
Yeah.
But space agencies like the European Space Agency, ESA, they're already prioritizing XAI and secure AI for mission-critical stuff. Projects like Pineberry show this commitment.
So it's recognized as essential at the agency level.
Definitely. It underscores just how important this is for real future missions.
Okay, so we have a picture of the AI brain, this hybrid, safe, explainable system. How does that translate to the actual robot, the hardware? What's the gap between our current amazing rovers like Perseverance and what this kind of pioneer robot would actually need?
It's a pretty significant gap. Perseverance is incredible, don't get me wrong. Its auto-nav system, letting it think while driving, is a huge leap. It set driving records using its vision compute element for real-time navigation.
Right.
But it still relies heavily on humans back on Earth for the big picture. We define keep-in zones, keep-out zones. Its autonomy is mostly about safely navigating a path we gave it, not making high-level scientific choices or long-term plans on its own.
So it executes plans well, but doesn't create the strategy.
Largely, yes. To
Mhm.
get to a true pioneer robot, we need a major hardware evolution. Let's look at a few areas. Computation. Perseverance's main computer, the RAD750, runs at maybe 133, 200 megahertz. That's like an ancient smartphone.
Very.
Yeah. The complex, multi-layered AI we just talked about, it needs orders of magnitude more power. We're talking radiation-hardened GPUs, specialized AI accelerators, basically fitting a supercomputer into a space-proof box.
Okay, massive compute leap. What about power?
Power. Current rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance use RTGs, radioisotope thermoelectric generators. They provide steady, reliable power for years, but it's limited. A long-duration, highly active autonomous mission, especially one doing construction or heavy ISRU,
Yeah.
it needs much more, probably a small fission nuclear reactor.
Nuclear power on Mars.
Seems likely for this kind of ambitious mission, yes. And then mobility and dexterity. The rocker bogie suspension, that six-wheel system, is incredibly reliable for rough terrain. But a fully autonomous Pioneer might need more advanced options, maybe legged systems like Boston Dynamics robots to get into really tricky spots, cave entrances, steep crater walls, places wheels can't go.
And the arms.
The robotic arms would need much greater dexterity, fine motor control, and crucially, the ability to self-maintain. Swap out their own tools automatically, maybe even perform simple repairs.
So it's a much more capable physical robot, too, not just smarter. The software autonomy has to leap forward as well.
Precisely. The Pioneer software needs to go way beyond navigation. We're talking full mission autonomy. Automated scientific targeting, building on systems like AGS that Perseverance has, but much more advanced. Long-term task planning, expanding on the simple onboard planners currently used. And, as mentioned, robust self-diagnosis and self-maintenance capabilities.
Now, the sources get really interesting here, talking about moving beyond just one super robot to maybe teams of robots, distributed systems.
Yes, this points towards advanced concepts like swarm robotics. Imagine a large Pioneer mothership deploying maybe dozens of smaller, specialized, perhaps even disposable robots.
Like a hive.
Exactly. It's inspired by things like using drone swarms to monitor volcanoes here on Earth. For Mars, the advantages are huge.
Such as?
Well, cave exploration. Swarms are perfect for high-risk, GPS-denied places like lava tubes. Those are prime targets for finding protected signs of past life. The little robots could create their own communication network as they go deeper.
Less risk if one gets lost or breaks.
Right. And distributed surveying. A swarm could map huge areas or do detailed 3D geological surveys much faster than a single rover. You get a much bigger picture, quicker.
And the resilience factor.
Huge. Losing one or two small bots doesn't end the mission. A single, multi-billion-dollar rover failing. That's catastrophic. Swarms add incredible redundancy.
And thinking about these long one-way missions, in situ resource utilization, ISRU, using local Martian resources, must be absolutely essential for them.
Key. Absolutely key for long-term survival and function. These autonomous robots could use ISRU to, well, first produce their own consumables, like oxygen from the CO2 atmosphere, building on the MOXE experiment already on Perseverance.
MOXI is working right.
It is, proving the concept. Or extracting water ice from the soil. This oxygen might not be for humans breathing, but for chemical processes. Maybe fuel cells for power, cleaning equipment, and second, they could produce mobility fuel, Imagine them making methane using atmospheric carbon and subsurface water ice through a Sabatier process.
What would they use methane for?
That could power high mobility systems, small rocket hoppers to explore wide areas, maybe even small local rockets to move samples or equipment around.
Okay, resource independence. And what's the ultimate expression of this autonomy? Could they actually build things?
That's the really exciting frontier. Autonomous construction, using ISRU materials processing Martian soil, maybe making a form of concrete sintering regolith with microwaves or lasers combined with advanced 3D printing. These pioneer robots could automatically build significant infrastructure. Landing pads, habitats, radiation shielding using packed regolith, garages,
Yeah.
power stations.
Wow, so they could literally prepare a site for future humans, make it safe before anyone even leaves Earth.
Exactly. That aligns perfectly with NASA projects like MMPACT, which is focused specifically on developing construction tech for the Moon and Mars.
So let's step back. All this, the advanced AI, the powerful hardware, the ISRU, the construction, what does it mean for the feasibility of that initial one-way robot idea from an engineering standpoint?
It makes a lot of sense. Remember that tyranny of the rocket equation?
The 8 or 10 to 1 gear ratio.
Getting rid of the Mars ascent vehicle, getting rid of all the complex, heavy life support needed for a human return trip, it drastically cuts mission complexity and cost.
Yeah.
It makes the whole thing vastly more achievable in the nearer term.
It sidesteps the hardest part of a human mission.
It does. And beyond just mass, robotic missions avoid so many other profound challenges of sending humans. The chronic radiation exposure over months or years, the physiological effects of low gravity, the sheer complexity of keeping humans alive that far from home. And what's really neat is how ISRU tech flips. Tech developed thinking about humans like needing 30 tons of oxygen for one MAV launch can be repurposed. Instead of that short-term, high-volume production, robots can use smaller, more efficient ISRU plants running continuously for years, generating resources for their own power, maintenance, and building materials for whatever comes next.
This analysis, it really makes it sound like a one-way robotic mission isn't just an alternative to sending humans first. It feels like the most logical, maybe even necessary precursor.
That's precisely the conclusion our sources strongly suggest. It aligns perfectly with the strategic goal everyone talks about, pre-deploying assets. Send the robots first to reduce the risk and cost for eventual human explorers. It becomes phase one of a multi-decade Mars strategy. And it fits perfectly with NASA's whole Moon to Mars architecture, which explicitly emphasizes using automation and robotics to assist crew in operations during human-free periods.
And testing it on the moon first.
Exactly. That architecting from the right principle. Use the long-term Mars goal to drive what tech you develop and prove on the moon. These pioneer robots are the ultimate expression of that.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly, thinking bigger picture. The old debate, humans or machines in space. That feels kind of outdated now, doesn't it? Based on this, the future is symbiosis.
Absolutely. It's really not humans or robots anymore. It's humans with robots.
Yeah.
Deep collaboration. Robots are the essential pioneers, the partners for human exploration. They do the dull, difficult, and dangerous stuff.
Scouting ahead, setting things up.
Exactly. Preparing the environment, building infrastructure, making it safer and much more scientifically productive when humans finally arrive.
And they each bring different vital strengths.
Completely different skill sets. Robots. Cost-effective, durable for long missions, operate safely in hazards humans couldn't tolerate, collect data with incredible precision. Humans. Unparalleled adaptability, creativity, intuition, on-the-spot problem-solving. A trained human geologist can size up a landscape and make discoveries in ways robots currently just can't. In days versus years, potentially.
Well, the inspiration factor.
Plus the intangible but vital element of human presence, inspiration, direct experience. That connection back to Earth.
And as you said, this whole robotic pioneer concept fits right into NASA's Moon to Mars plans. It's not counter to it, it is it in a way.
It really is. The Pioneer mission to Mars becomes the ultimate test case for architecting from the right, using that long-term goal to drive the technology we first test and prove closer to home on the moon.
Okay, here's where it gets really complex. Sending super smart autonomous AI deep into space, especially on a one-way trip. This must raise some huge ethical questions.
This is where the conversation moves beyond engineering. It absolutely does. The sources highlight several major concerns. First, accountability and liability. If an autonomous robot makes a mistake, causes damage, even inadvertently harms potential Martian life, who is responsible? Our current legal and ethical frameworks are nowhere near ready for this.
A truly significant challenge.
Then, data privacy and security. These robots will gather immense amounts of data, ensuring it's used responsibly, protected from misuse or even hacking. Critical. And then there's the one-way trip question itself. Is it ethically okay to send these complex learning agents on a mission with no return? It forces us to think about the moral status we might assign to sophisticated non-biological intelligence. Do they deserve consideration?
Wow, that's deep. And what about the planetary impact, autonomous construction on Mars, even if it's lifeless now?
A crucial point. Two aspects here. One is the immediate risk of contamination. We absolutely must not destroy or contaminate any potential evidence of past or present Martian life. That would be an unforgivable scientific loss. Planetary protection is paramount.
Sterilization protocols and careful site selection.
Essential. But then there's the bigger picture. The specter of terraforming. Even just building habitats and landing pads. It is engineering another planet. It's a step, however small, in that direction.
And that sparks debate?
A huge ethical debate. Is it hubris, as some argue, arrogant vandalism of another world's natural state, its aesthetic or scientific value, even if it's lifeless? Or is it a necessary step for humanity's future?
No easy answers there.
Not at all. And if we connect this to the bigger philosophical picture, this whole proposal pushes us firmly into what thinkers call a post-humanist era. People like Francesca Ferrando, Konrad Socek explore this.
Post-humanism, how so?
Well, first, it involves decentering the human. Post-humanism challenges the idea that humans are the be-all and end-all. A pioneer robot mission embodies this shift exploration carried out by our non-human agents. Second, it touches on human enhancement. Long-term survival in space might eventually require biological or technological upgrades for humans, turning us into post-humans. Sending robotic pioneers could be seen as sending our technological children instead of modifying our biological ones.
An interesting framing.
And third, it forces us to confront the post-human condition. Just the act of migrating off Earth, whether via robots or ourselves, forces a redefinition of what human means in relation to technology and radically new environments.
So what this all means is, developing and sending these robots isn't just an engineering task. It's a profound ethical exercise. The choice of robots first, or humans first, or how we combine them. It really becomes a debate about fundamental values. Direct human experience versus the safe, systematic gathering of knowledge.
Precisely. And this raises a really important point. The very process of deciding how to do this, defining the robot's goals, their safety constraints, their operating principles, it forces humanity to have a concrete global conversation. A conversation about the real purpose and the ethics of space exploration. These robots, in a way, aren't just our physical proxies out there.
They're more than that.
They become representatives of our collective ethical reasoning, embodied in code and hardware.
Okay, this has been a really comprehensive deep dive. It seems clear the vision for a one-way robotic pioneer mission isn't just science fiction. It's feasible, maybe even strategically vital. But as we've thoroughly discussed, the idea of a perfect AI is still, well, an illusion.
Right. The real challenge isn't perfect AI, it's provably safe AI. Autonomous systems that operate within strong, verifiable constraints, and systems that can transparently explain their actions.
So looking forward, our analysis seems to point towards a logical, multi-decade strategy.
It does. It suggests a phased approach. Phase 1, the robotic pioneer, send these advanced one-way autonomous robots, driven by that hybrid AI model-based safety, model-free learning, their primary mission. Not just science, but using ISRU and autonomous construction to prepare a safe, well-understood, resource-rich beachhead on Mars.
Setting the stage.
Exactly. Then, phase 2. The human arrival. Decades later, humans follow. But their mission is transformed. It's not the high-risk Apollo-style flag and footprints dash. They arrive at a prepared site. Habitats, power, resources, basic infrastructure already waiting. This dramatically lowers the risk and lets them maximize the unique scientific contribution only humans can make.
So given that roadmap, what are the absolute key things we need to focus on now in policy and research?
Based on everything we've covered, there are clear recommendations. First, prioritize foundational research in safe and explainable AI. Really double down on supporting work into those hybrid safety systems, DMPS, RLAR, and mandating XAI for mission-critical space systems.
Build the trustworthy brain first.
Yes. Second, develop pioneer-class robotic platforms. Start dedicated projects now to design these next-gen robots. Specifically, tackle those hardware gaps. The massive jump needed in computation, the robust power sources like fission, the advanced mobility and dexterity.
Design the body to match the brain.
Right. Third, utilize the moon as a testbed. Stick to that Moon to Mars plan. Rigorously test these advanced robots and autonomous systems on the Moon first. A robot that can autonomously build a lunar landing pad is 90% of the way to one that can do it on Mars.
Prove it closer to home.
Makes sense. And finally, crucially, foster international and public ethical dialogue. We need formal forums, maybe extending things like the Artemis Accords, to specifically discuss and create the ethical and legal frameworks needed before we deploy these highly autonomous systems far beyond Earth.
We need the rules of the road before the super smart cars are driving everywhere.
An apt analogy. We need to have these tough conversations now.
This deep dive really shows us that our journey to Mars isn't just about the hardware, the rockets, the robots. It's fundamentally about defining what it means to be human as we expand into the cosmos. So thinking about all this, what ethical questions does sending these intelligent robotic pioneers raise for you as we look towards pushing these new frontiers?